Welcome back to Up Close. Gang problems. Even the term can seem something like a cliche, but mention the gang name MS-13 and suddenly there is nothing cliche at all about it. The group, born in Los Angeles in the 1980s after civil wars in 3 Central American countries, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. They have been, as we know, in Suffolk County, killing many people, many young people. And now they're also very active in Nassau County on Long Island. One of many issues facing the District Attorney of Nassau, Madeline Singas, and we welcome District Attorney to Up Close. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So their activity in Nassau County, as we've seen, increasing.
Absolutely.
What are you doing about it?
They're there. You know, we're monitoring them. We're prosecuting them. They're being arrested. They're being held fully accountable. This is a dangerous group of young men who band together and are wreaking havoc in our schools, in our neighborhoods. We're working with our federal partners. There's been collaboration that I've never seen before between the feds, between the state, between Homeland Security, the FBI, the Nassau County Police Department, Suffolk County Police Department. We're all working together, sharing intelligence, making sure that the bullseye is on this gang. In
the olden days, you know, 15 years ago, of gang strategy by police and law enforcement like yourself, it was easy enough to say, look, what these kids need community policing strategies, they have after-school activities, get away from the drugs, very directed. This gang does not necessarily change based on that strategy.
Well, look, we're still doing a lot of that. We're still talking to kids about joining gangs. We're educating kids at schools about dangers of gangs. We're getting former gang members out to talk to people and educate them. But our primary responsibility is to keep our communities safe. Right. And the way to do that is to arrest and prosecute and hold them accountable. The crimes that we're talking about are brutal. Their weapon of choice is a machete. We end up seeing people with injuries that I've never seen before. You know, limbs hacked off, and that's what the bodies look like that we're recovering. So they're brutal, they're ruthless, and we're going to be relentless in our attacks against them.
And the issues that the whole presence of a gang like MS-13 bring to the fore cover a variety of social problems. Guns, immigration, young people's problems, violence, schools, intimidation, bullying, all that comes to play.
Yeah, all of that. And we see a lot of the intimidation as they try to recruit gang members. I mean, their philosophy is you're either with MS-13 or you're against them. And everyone who's against them is a potential enemy for them.
And yet there was a problem. Some of the people who were detained for months had been released. The feds, the criticism was, got a little too overzealous in basically detaining these kids.
I mean, that was the criticism, but the feds' position is that all of these people have gang affiliations and have done something to move the gang forward. So they're confident that they're gang members. Let's
talk about guns a little bit more, as long as we're on the gang problem. The concealed weapon permit, the new law that the House wants passed, they have passed it, is now going to the Senate, will say that anyone licensed to carry a gun, concealed weapon, in another state, all the other states have to acknowledge that. Yeah. This means a lot for people in New York.
It's a horrible and horrific act if it passes. The Concealed Carry Reciprocity Act basically says that we're as strong as the weakest gun laws of any state. So basically anyone who can get a concealed carry permit in another state, no matter how lax that state is in giving out that permit, and some of them are even permitless states. You don't have to show anything to get a gun. No training, no background checks. Those people can bring their concealed weapons into New York. It's a frightening situation. All of us as prosecutors in law enforcement are joining together and speaking out, because it means that public safety will be at risk. There'll be thousands of guns flowing into New York.
Last week, the commissioner of the NYPD, Jimmy O'Neill, was on this show railing against it. He had actually lobbied Congress against it. Have you done anything like that?
Yes, we have. We have an organization called Prosecutors Against Gun Violence. It's an organization that's both Republican and Democratic, so it's nonpartisan, because all of us are on the front lines. We see what gun violence does to our communities. In fact, we were in D.C. Lobbying members of Congress to say, please don't pass this. And this is what we see. We had the DA from Las Vegas talking to us about it. We saw some video of that incident, and just to hear it and see it, you know, all of us as professionals and all of us who have been doing this a long time, we're chilled to the bone. And if that comes to New York, imagine anywhere, from Rockefeller Center to Times Square to, in my county, a place like Roosevelt Field Mall, people coming in carrying concealed weapons. How is law enforcement supposed to keep us safe when they don't know who's carrying a gun and who's not? And think about what happened the other day, you know, with that pipe bomb attack. Now, if
in
there
the
are
subways
people
in
in
New
the
York.
subway, right, in tunnels. Now, imagine there's police officers and undercover police officers and everyone rushing to that scene and no one knowing who's supposed to have a gun and who's not supposed to have a gun.
It's a frightening scenario to even think about. All the people who have legal carry permits in Arkansas coming in and also pulling their guns in the subway of New York.
Yeah, exactly. Or Vermont, which is a permitless state. So you don't even have to demonstrate that you've had any background checks or you've gotten any training. So anyone can bring that weapon into New York. So as prosecutors against gun violence, and we are out there talking to people, making sure that people understand from our perspective, and it's not a partisan perspective, it's a law enforcement perspective, that this will endanger people's lives.
Last time you were on this program, you talked a lot about opioids. It was a huge push and campaign on your office's part. You went into office proclaiming that this was the war you were declaring. Yeah. Where do you stand on it now, and how much farther do you have to go?
Well, we have a lot farther to go because it is an epidemic like nothing I've ever seen. In fact, more Americans die because of overdoses than car crashes and gunshot violence combined. So it's something that's staggering. The numbers are really staggering. But we're working very hard, and we are going after drug dealers in a big way. And we are dismantling entire drug organizations in Nassau County, whether the drugs flow into Nassau or whether Nassau is the point that then distributes the guns, the drugs to other
both
parts
are
of the country.
right?
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, a lot of these gangs, you know, traffic both weapons and opioids. So it's a business, and we attack their business model, and we're dismantling them from top to bottom. And we're also putting, again, a lot of our forfeiture money, non-taxpayer dollars, into treatment and making sure that people get the help that they need.
How much are the feds participating in your effort? Because outgoing governor of New Jersey, Chris Christie, in charge of the federal response to opioids, is that actually, you see that having an effect in your area?
Yeah, we're working very closely with the feds, you know, federal law enforcement, because we're sharing our data, we're sharing our information, and we're saying who are the best equipped to handle this specific problem. We'll talk about it, and we'll come up with a plan, and we work together because, again, it's not localized to Nassau, it's a problem that everyone is facing.
At the same time you're cracking down on the hard crimes, you're also trying to figure out a way to not make young people who might violate a law and get them into the system for life and have them have some sort of alternative sentencing. Tell us what that is about.
Yeah, you know, so we just created a Phoenix unit in our office, basically Phoenix, you know, from mythology, reviving from the ashes, a second chance, and we're saying on our nonviolent offenders, what's going on with this person? What's driving their criminality? Do they have a substance abuse disorder? Is there mental health that's driving it? Is it other things, like do they need to get job training? Do they need more of an education? We're looking holistically at a person and saying, what can we do in a system to give this person the best chance and then to redirect them out of a life of crime.
And for those who might have mental health issues, you made a big deal of saying that this is not a crime, this is a medical problem,
Exactly,
not a criminal problem.
Right, it's a medical problem, and sometimes it leads to other issues. So sometimes a lot of people with mental health issues try to self-medicate, and then that leads to addiction, and then they get caught up in the system, and we have drug treatment parts, but that's not dealing with their underlying mental health issues. So we're trying to take a more holistic approach because ultimately, if we can keep people out of the system, public safety wins.
You know, we could talk about each of these issues for about an hour.
Yeah.
So I thank you for parboiling it down into short little snippets, because each of these is important. Will you come back and join us again?
Absolutely.
All right, really
Thanks
good.
for
Good luck
having
to you out
me.
in Nassau
Happy
County.
holidays.
District Attorney of Nassau County, Madeline Singas. We appreciate it. When we come back, will Donald Trump finally get his first piece of legislation passed? Talking about tax reform. Is it about to become law, or is it on life support? It changes every day, it seems. We discuss with our political analyst, Hank Scheikoff, and ABC News political director, Rick Klein, when Up Close continues.